Welcome to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, the daily talk show with the voice of Penn State football and men's basketball. You never know what special guest may stop on by any given day. Now here's the man of the hour, Mr. Steve Jones.
Hey, yo. I'm taking your line now. If you didn't notice, by the way, there is no Christmas tree anymore in the studio. It has been taken out. It is now gone. I know you're enthused about it.
The tree's still up at my house.
Yeah, it's still up at your house, which is a good thing, I guess. And speaking of the show, by the way, just so you're aware, I know you a big social media guy. The show, we have clips going up every single day onto our Twitter at Sports7MM, our Instagram at 7MM Sports, and our Facebook at 7MM Sports as well, and onto the YouTube page where we're live streaming right now. You're everywhere, Steve. You're a man of the people, some may say. Man of the people, Steve Jones, who just looks so happy as I say all of these words to him.
It's funny because when I talk to my broadcasting class, and the number of talks is starting to dwindle here, yes. I'm trying not to look too happy.
Yeah.
I talked to them, but when I talked about social media, I always talked to them about the responsibility of it. Don't get into Twitter fights or Instagram fights or whatever it happens to be. I said, you're the known entity, as opposed to somebody who's just trying to push your buttons sitting in a basement somewhere. You know, that old cliche, that old stereotype.
Yeah.
And I said, don't get into that stuff. I said, you don't need to do that. I said, but you can use it to promote your own brand. I said, I'm lucky. I said, I'm at the stage of my life, I don't need to do that stuff.
No.
So I remember one time Learfield, the former rights holder, and I know I've told this story in the air before, but I'll tell it again. They wanted Jack and I to do, I think it was Twitter, during timeouts and pregame injuries, things like that.
Sure.
And I said, no, we're not going to do that. No, it would be really great. I said, great for what? Well, you can put on Twitter what the injury report is. This is before they were. I said, then why don't we have the pregame show? What? That was the response. What? I said, we have 60 stations on here. Why do we circumvent them by putting it on Twitter when we can announce it on the radio? That's a really good point. I said, that's what the advertisers pay for, don't they? All right.
Logical.
I know, that's why I said it.
Yeah.
Right.
Someone would say you're a smart man, Steve Jones.
But I remember, and this is another one I've told many times before, but I worked a couple of basketball games with Jimmy Jackson. Great guy. I mean, just flat out great guy. Like, I really personally like Jim a lot. And working with him, I loved working with him. And the first time we were working together, every time out he was on his phone. So we got to like the under 8 timeout. Now during that time, the producer's talking to me, So, it wasn't like I was like, okay, I'm being shunned here. No. The producer's, hey, Steve, we're going to come back. We're going to do this replay, this way. Okay, fine. But finally, it was a little bit of a break. I said, you don't mind me asking? I said, you're on the phone every break. He goes, Steve. He says, the network. He says, is making me put something on Twitter to pump the game up and promote it, right, as we're going along. He says, I really apologize. I said, don't apologize. You're just doing your job. I was just curious. He goes, no. He says, believe me, I'd rather talk to you. I was like, I know. But that's changed. A lot of that's changed. You don't have to do that stuff anymore. And I don't, it's nice we're on Instagram. It's nice that there are all these platforms that people can find the show. That's always been my point about streaming with television, right? Why do you, and we go back to the Peacock game last year, you can brag all you want about 23 million viewers for the Kansas City-Miami playoff game. Now, look, I watched it, right? I didn't use my account, but I watched it.
Yeah.
Okay. And you cut off 17 million viewers. That was going to be a 40 million viewer broadcast if it were over the air. How do you brag about losing 17 million viewers? This is where you have a publicity department that just takes selected facts and essentially lies about how great it is. To me, because to me, this is inventive lying. Okay, it was great. 23 million. You gave 17 million people the bird. The goal of media. Okay, and you're talking about being on X. This is on X. It's on Instagram. What else is it on?
Facebook, and then YouTube, where we're currently live streaming.
YouTube. Peace. Well, I'm just being friendly with the people. Right. Yeah, it's like, it could be like Jason. Jason never signs autographs.
No, he's too big time for it.
Pictures, no. Last time he had his picture taken, he cut his hair. It's a running joke on the show. You know that. You know it's a running joke.
I know,
on the show.
but you catch me off guard sometimes with the jokes.
Okay,
and it was one of them.
And so when you can couple platforms where you're taking care of both streaming and over the air, you maximize your audience. Right?
Such as,
for example, I think the NBC. Which one do they have this weekend?
On Sunday. The NBC/Peacock game at 3:00 is the Rams Eagles,
right. So, but again,
right afterwards, CBS Paramount Plus has Ravens Bills.
That's how you do it. That's where you maximize your audience. There are people that will stream. I don't know. Let's pick a number. 1 to 2 million may stream.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, the other 38 million are going to be watching on either cable or over the air or something. The entire goal is to maximize your audience. So by putting this show on YouTube, putting it on Facebook, putting the clips on X, putting the clips on Instagram, it maximizes the audience.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the purpose of what you're supposed to be doing in media. All of media is built all the time about how big is your audience. 17.5 million viewers for the Orange Bowl, 20 million viewers for the Cotton Bowl.
Yeah.
You maximized your audience. Now, they could have done better.
Of course.
You want to know why? Because it was only on ESPN.
Yeah.
It wasn't on ABC. Okay. You notice Monday Night Football has been going more to the ESPN ABC model. And their ratings have been higher than ever because now you're giving everybody the option to watch it over the air or cable. And I realize what the idea is. The idea for ESPN is about cable subscriptions because that's
their bread and butter.
They are the entity of what they are. So I understand what they're doing, but at least it's out there where almost everybody has ESPN, as opposed to streaming. Where you're like, okay, it's Christmas Day, I'm going to watch Netflix, and not only that, the two games were bad.
Yeah, and by the way, in terms of ESPN ABC, as you mentioned, Saturday Texans Chiefs is ESPN ABC, ESPN Plus, so all three options are available. You have the ABC crowd, the ESPN crowd, and you have the streaming ESPN Plus crowd. Right. So you have all three knocked out of the park. I don't know if it'll be on Disney Plus because I know some ESPN Plus things have been. I got to watch the women's volleyball team when they won their tournament. That was on Disney Plus.
Yes, okay,
very
that's
cool.
How you watched it.
So it was. I wasn't able to watch it originally because I don't have cable. And then I saw it. It was Disney Plus has some ESPN Plus things streaming on it, and that was one of them. And so some things like that are going to pop up from time to time. I've been able to watch a couple Penn State games because they just happen to be on there.
Right,
it's cool.
So let's get to the big story of the day.
Yes.
And that is the Biden administration on the way out the door. I mean, we're talking about they are still in business as we do this for, 72, 73 more hours?
Days.
It's 73 more hours. They have already put together, the Department of Education has already talked about in Title IX. They've gone back and forth on transgender athletes. I'm not going to get into that, okay? And now this ruling about the $20.5 million. Now, number one, the settlement isn't done yet because Claudia Wilken has to sign off on it, and that's not till April 7th. Approximately 15 to 17 million of that 20.5 million, most schools worth their salt, we're going to shift it to football, with a couple of million going to men's basketball. Oh, gee, why? Oh, I don't know. They're the ones that make money to keep everybody else alive, especially football. Men's basketball is a really good supplement that pays for itself, and when it's going well, may help pay for a couple of other sports. Okay, but football takes care of everything else. Step in the Biden administration. The $20.5 million, in their opinion, falls under Title IX. Interesting. And that means that 10.25 will go to men's sports and 10.25 will go to women's sports.
Yes. The exact statement from the Office for Civil Rights, the division of the Department of Ed that enforces Title IX law, said in its memo that those future payments should be considered, quote unquote, athletic financial assistance and therefore must be shared proportionally between men and women's athletes. This is coming from the ESPN article from Paul Levine and Dan Murphy.
Right.
That's where I'm pulling this from.
Right. Now, let's be straight about this. There are ways to make this work. You just wish it was just a straight up, you can just do this the logical business way. Now, Penn State's athletic department is autonomous. Okay? But because it's the name Penn State University, the university gets Department of Education funding. They can withhold it, blah, blah, blah. Okay, so you don't want to get into that game because universities need the funds. Okay? You don't want to take tuition and send it through the roof. Right? So, now I don't know how this falls into place for a private school like Notre Dame, USC, Tulane, Miami.
Syracuse.
No, Syracuse has no money. So I saw the attendance at your last basketball game.
Oh, gee, don't bring up the basketball team right now. Okay, let me bring up Kyle McCord, not basketball. Come on.
He's going to the draft.
I know he gave us 1 year of happiness. He's the coolest Kyle to ever go to Syracuse, and I can acknowledge that.
Second coolest Kyle.
If he's first coolest Kyle, he beats me.
He's there 1 year. You put in 4.
Yeah, he made more of an impact in 1 year.
Well, maybe 8. But I mean. Okay. There are ways around this. You don't want to do it. There are ways of getting money there. The collectives are still available. And let's see how the Trump administration wants to handle this and what their guidance is. It may be exactly the same. Okay? I don't know who President Trump nominated for the Department of Education. That I don't know. But I do know that whomever that is may go to Pam Bondi, who is the Attorney General nominee, and in all likelihood will be confirmed, and say, hey, look, can we have the Department of Justice give us guidance on this?
The nominee, by the way, is former CEO of WWE, Linda McMahon.
Oh, Linda McMahon. Okay. She was in charge of the Small Business Administration the first time in the Trump administration.
Yes.
And by the way, is one of the
So if
take Vince out of this. Linda McMahon as a business person has always been incredibly respected by people. That's why when they put her in charge of the Small Business Administration, did you ever hear complaints about it? No.
And if confirmed, she'll be the one in charge of the Department of Ed, which includes, of course, the Office for Equal Rights, or Title IX.
So we'll see how they want to approach it. Because remember, the finalization of the settlement is not until April 7th. The Trump administration, which begins at 12:01 on Monday, may have, and I only say may have, different guidance. Or Linda McMahon may go to Pam Bondi's office in the Department of Justice and say, okay, give us some guidance on this. And and she may say, or her team may say, well, this is it may be the same. I don't know. But all I know is that this guidance from the Department of Education, This thing has been sitting there for months and months and months. You send it out yesterday? Really? I thought you'd be mostly spending time packing boxes. But it is what it is, and it's there. So now you have to come up with two plans. One is, if the guidance is the way it's been originally, where college football programs get 15 to 17 million, men's basketball programs may get around 2 million, and then you start working around the rest. Okay? There's no doubt women's sports has really come on, but it's not making money. Like you were telling me the other day about how they're going to do a unit-based women's basketball tournament. Okay? But, like, for example, South Carolina is going to clean up. No, South Carolina is not going to clean up. You want to know why? Because it all goes into the conference and is split evenly among 16 teams. So you're going to get a little more money, but not enough to make up your deficit. And they're all, okay? Every single program loses money. Tennessee baseball loses money. Oh, no, they make money. No, they don't make money. They don't. Okay? They don't have a TV contract. And let's just start with that. The radio contract is always with a station in the market. It's not a network. Okay, I mean, you see what I'm saying?
No, I get it.
It's the media money that makes the difference here. You can have great attendance. Tennessee baseball sells out. South Carolina women's basketball draws really well. Okay, but ticket sales are not enough to get you over the top based on the expenses you have, especially in the expanded world of college athletics. For example, Penn State still, the women's basketball team just went to Los Angeles. Well, they spent 5 days out there, which they had to. You can't just play, we're going to play back-to-back games and come back. You can't do that. You can't. That's wrong for rest and recovery. That's why you don't do it. I know in a tournament in Cancun, you'll have to do it once.
Or in the Big Ten tournaments, those happen. But that's
the conference tournament that happens. In the regular season, you're trying to get rest and recovery times, so forth. So you can't go out. Let's go. We're going to play USC on a Monday. We're going to play UCLA on a Tuesday. Get on a plane, come back. Not going to do that.
Yeah.
Okay. So you got to pay for the plane to get out there. You got to pay for the hotel rooms, for the meals, everything goes. Okay. And that's part of the expanded. And look, if you're chartering out there, it's by the mile. Okay. So I'm going to use small numbers here, but I just want to use easy numbers.
Sure.
Okay. I say it's again. I'm just using just hypothetical tiny numbers here, so I can give you a scale. It may be $10,000 to charter to Columbus, and you're chartering to Los Angeles is $50,000.
It's a huge difference.
Right.
It's a lot of money.
Right. I mean, it's a lot of money to do.
That's by the way 52 and 50 back. Like it adds up. The money adds up.
I mean, this is how the expenses start adding up as to what you're doing.
Yeah.
And they should be chartering. Okay, it's best for them that they charter. I don't care if they charter. Again, what has been always my stance on how much money is lost in other sports. I don't care if you're losing money in other sports because I've got enough to make up for it over here in football and with some help from men's basketball.
Yeah.
It's not supposed to be a for-profit enterprise. It's supposed to be an enterprise of athletics where when you're done with the year, you've got maybe $5 to $10 million, and essentially it's a rainy day fund. Well, a rainy day fund. Excuse me. In 2020, it was a tsunami. Okay.
Yeah.
Because of what happened with COVID. Well, the rainy day fund for everybody disappeared. But that's what you're supposed to end up with. It's not for profit, but you need to at least have it when the year is over with. You're in that $5 to $10 million cushion range of in case you need it. Okay? And so wrestling should have been chartering a long time ago.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? So one thing, Russ Rose got women's volleyball chartering, and he did it not because the men were, not because men's basketball was chartering. He got it because Renee Portland got charters.
Mm-hmm.
Well, he said, hey, look, we're winning national championships. And that was his argument. Yeah. And women's volleyball got charters. Wrestling should have had charters years ago. Okay? Their success demands they get charters. Now, I'll never forget last year going to the airport and the men's gymnastics team. We had Tony Beck on the coach's show last night. We were at the airport, and the men's gymnastics team was there, and they were going to Nebraska. It's the first time in the history of the program they chartered. Those athletes were thrilled beyond words to do that, to not take a commercial flight, switch planes, go, everything that goes with it. They were thrilled beyond words. And Pat's been great about this, Pat Kraft, understanding what is needed to give everybody a shot. But like I said, as I said, wrestling should have been chartering a long time ago. Cale, you know how much Cale asked for? Nothing. When he speaks up and wants something, you need to perk up right away and go, what do you need? You tell me, what do you need? Because, Cale's not a big money spender. Okay? When he asks for something, there is an absolute reason behind it.
Yeah.
Right? Okay? And he asked for this a long time ago. Well, nothing. Let's figure this out. Let's make this happen. Last I checked, based on your track record, you deserve it. Right? See what I mean? So I don't care about expenditures if I've at least got an entity and maybe a part of another entity that helps make up for it. It's a not-for-profit deal. Now, when it comes to this, you have to follow the guidance of what's going on from the Department of Education. It's just I don't like the timing of it. Okay, this settlement has been sitting there for months and months and months. Right? You could have offered this guidance in October. Okay, doing it now, going out the door. And I realize there is a lawsuit in the state of Oregon about. I know you're shocked there's a lawsuit. Lawyers are getting very rich off this stuff, by the way. And, I have a lot of good friends that are lawyers. That's why Jerry doesn't touch me. Jerry, meet my lawyers. That's, I'm talking about Valeri here. They gave us these pretzels. Right? Jerry had 8. It's just, what about the rest of us?
You got one.
I got half of one.
I got none. I'm okay without it.
I was hungry. But he had 8.
Yeah.
Valeri. But you see what I'm saying about the money part of it. Okay? Title IX is important. Title IX is about opportunity. Okay? To me, your ability to make money at that point is about you. I thought when it came out, this was a possibility that somebody was going to step in and say, hey, what about the Title IX implications? So I always thought it was a possibility. But as the weeks went by, and nothing happened. I knew about the Oregon lawsuit, but nothing was happening. I had a pretty good idea where it was going to go with money allocation. Now, you get the wrench that's thrown into it. Now, remember, they don't have to give out $20.5 million. That's the limit.
Yeah.
If you want to give out $4 million and divide it evenly, it's up to you.
Changing gears in terms of similar money and in terms of talent and flights.
Is this Sala? We're gonna
No,
your guy? No.
Hiroki Sasaki. Actually, he of course has been posted to the MLB, so he can sign with somebody. It is now looking like it's down to the Dodgers, and the long shot is the Blue Jays. So expected to be the Dodgers he signs for, and because he's an international amateur, it is not going to be an astronomically high number. The number will be somewhere around $5.1 to $7.5 million, because that is the international amateur system pool level you're allowed to pay someone. So $5 to $7.5 million. So I suspect it'll be a short few year deal. He's 23, which is why it's so weird, because he has not hit the number of years that he's allowed to be considered a professional, like Yoshinobu Yamamoto hit, where he got 10 years, 325. So Saki is not at that number. He's gonna get a lot of money. And then he's going to get paid a lot more in a few years' time, probably again by the Dodgers. But Steve, my one comment is, how can they keep getting away with this? How is this allowed? How can we let the Dodgers do this? I don't get it.
Because baseball has a luxury tax, and the Dodgers don't care about paying.
None. They care. They care as much with the luxury tax as they do about me. Right. On par. Well, and it's ridiculous.
If it makes any difference, Jerry Valeri cares about you.
He does care quite a bit about me, and it's great. But how do the Dodgers keep doing this? I'm mad, Steve. And I know there's no chance that we get a salary cap in baseball, because
you're never going to get it.
Never going to get it at this point. It is way beyond.
You're never going to get it because the last time they went to negotiate, it was non-negotiable.
And by the way, if they were to get a salary cap, you'd expect them to try and get a salary floor. And there are certain owners who may not like that.
See, that's the problem. The players don't want a salary cap, and the Kansas City Royals, the Pittsburgh Pirates, among others, don't want a floor.
Nope.
They don't want to be told that they have to spend $100 million on payroll. Yeah. They'd rather spend 60.
And that's the whole thing with the NBA for years, was they had a salary floor, which I believe was 85% of the number. And if they spent below, let's say it was $100 million, let's say they spent $90 million in a season, they had $10 million below the floor by the year's end, they had to give that number to their players, divided up amongst all of them. So that year, the Thunder got that number. They had Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. They had to give him and everyone else like $1 million because they were way under the number. And by the way, the Thunder now are the best team in the NBA. So Shea got an extra $1 million, and now they're playing really well. So it's interesting. What, you're just nodding along?
Well, I'm just not. It's like that's the way it's going to be, because to me, a more interesting mover in all this is actually Quinn Ewers.
Quinn Ewers, the person who
he's opted for the draft, but I would like to point out his name is in the portal.
Is it really? Interesting. That's interesting, Steve.
Right. Dan Lanning has been the head coach. I'm just going to use them as an example. Has been the head coach at Oregon for 3 years. Marcus Freeman has been the head coach at Notre Dame for 3 years. What do each one of them have in common?
What is it?
Last year, in 2023, Marcus Freeman went with a fifth-year quarterback named Sam Hartman. When Sam Hartman left, he then went with a fifth-year quarterback in Riley Leonard. In Dan Lanning's tenure at Oregon, he has gone with a fifth-year quarterback in Bo Nix, a sixth-year quarterback in Bo Nix, and a sixth-year quarterback in Dylan Gabriel.
Yep. Experience.
In other words, not one time have they had to turn to the guy that's taken 8 snaps. Okay? Not once.
Yeah.
Ewers is sitting there. As you know, I am not a big Ewers guy.
No, and not his biggest fan.
At Penn State, we're playing Texas on Monday night. I would say the same thing. I'm not going to sit there. I'm not going to lie to people. There are some things I think he does very, very well. I think he plays gutsy football. I think that he can take some of the short to medium stuff that he's accurate with, but anything else he has to make, we'll give him all the credit in the world. The 3 consecutive throws he made in the Arizona State game and the Peach Bowl, when they needed it after really having a mediocre day overall, were 3 outstanding throws that won the game for his team. Right? Again, the ability to be fair on these things.
Yeah.
But he's never lit me up as a quarterback. Never. I'll never forget doing this show and somebody calling up when he signed with Ohio State. How come they get a guy like that on the text? Because he reclassified. It was because the NIL laws at the time were not unified across the country. So the Texas NIL was different for a reclassified player compared to the state of Ohio. So he goes to Ohio State. And I said on the show, I said, I don't think you guys get it. He's going to be on the scout team all year. He's going to be the fourth team quarterback. He'll never take a snap. Well, I was wrong about one part. He took 2 snaps.
How dare you be wrong, Steve?
I'm saying, but you
No,
know,
I know.
Because and then I talk to people. Right? Again, like little side conversations. I said, how's he doing here? And they're like, I said, he's never going to play here. Okay, those are the people at Ohio State telling me that when he was there. I said, he's never going to play here. I said, he's not going to stay, is he? He says, no, he's just using us and everybody. He said, and the people in Columbus were furious the whole time about it. And the reason they were furious about it because they knew they were only being used
as a pathway towards
going to
his
Texas.
goal. Yeah.
Right? They knew it. Okay, but he also wasn't good enough. Okay? Now maybe in 2-3 years he may have been. But he wasn't good enough then. He wasn't good enough to be the third team guy. He wasn't good enough to be the second string guy. He just wasn't. Now, to his credit, he's been able to get Texas to the college football playoff 2 years in a row, which means that's 2 years in a row that Texas has made the Final Four. He should get credit for that. As an NFL prospect, the only thing he has going for him as an NFL prospect, the only thing in terms of being up the draft board, is he's a quarterback. Right? He's probably a third-day guy. I mean, he's probably like a 4th, 5th round guy, but as a quarterback, he'd go on the second day. Like, I'll give you an example. Jalen Milroe. There's a lot of people think Jalen Milroe is a second-round pick. Well, Jalen Milroe, no. As an NFL quarterback, if you're going to take the players and rank them 1 through 250, just 1 through 250, regardless of position. I mean, Abdul Carter might be 1. Okay? Milroe's probably in the hundreds somewhere. I'm talking about like 100 to 150, maybe he's in the 125 to 175 range. Yours is the same way. And if you're just doing it like 1 through whatever. But as a quarterback, you move up exponentially because of the position you play.
Yep.
And so I could see him being in New Orleans. Same.
And currently how things are slated, and the best place I could find so far is CBS Sports. How they have it in terms of rankings of players, because that's the best one I could find off the quick rip. Jalen Milroe is 32nd ranked for them, so the end of the first round, and Quinn Ewers is 52nd. By the way, Kyle McCord is 90th ranked for them. So I'd like to have him as a Saint personally.
Whose ranking is that?
CBS Sports.
CBS Sports.
That is the best one I could find off the bat, because a lot of them are paywalled, and I do not have every platform as of this moment. But the point you're making is Quinn Ewers, and I think the problem for him is Carson Beck is returning. If Carson Beck wasn't going to come back, I'm fairly confident Miami would have said, hey, Quinn Ewers, would you like to come down to Miami? Because they'll say, look what Cam Ward did. He came down for a year, bumped his draft stop up big time, and then left, and is going to be in the first round draft. He's going to be picked probably top 5 because he's a quarterback who's decent. Like, that's what Cam Ward's going to have. Yeah. So they're saying, hey, do the same thing. He just did. And Carson Beck got there first. So now Quinn Ewers kind of left out in the cold, because also he recognizes he's not starting next year. Carson Beck got there first because Georgia was eliminated first. Because under the rules right now, for one thing, what you see in the Penn State roster until the next transfer window, which I think is scheduled for the end of April, or early May, something like that. It's after blue-white. Right, that is the roster. Because the transfer portal, there's always that 48-hour lag time in case somebody puts it in late and whatever reason doesn't get through. That's come and gone. So the transfer portal's done.
The NFL draft declaration for Penn State, it was done on, the portal was done Tuesday. The NFL draft declaration was done by Wednesday.
Yeah.
So what you see is what you have right now. Beck declared for the draft, then portaled. I think Ewers has done the same thing. I'm telling you, there's going to be somebody. There was this story about, for $6 million. $6 million? Are you kidding me? I wouldn't give him $60,000.
Yeah.
Right? It's just, it's interesting because it's a position where experience means something. And part of the experience is, I realize that we are taking, we're looking at Drew Aller. And look, I know the Orange Bowl is a tough night. I got that part. Everybody's going to have tough days, right? Like usually once a month, Jerry has a good one. And what?
Continue.
Do you listen to the show?
I do.
Okay. But you're talking about he has now grown into this position here. When he makes the start against Nevada, it'll be the 30th start of his career. He's now transitioned into that guy that is among the more experienced quarterbacks in the country. As opposed to going up against guys, right, like a Riley Leonard that are fifth-year guys, Dylan Gabriel, sixth-year guy that have all been around the block over and over again. And and that's where the Ewers thing comes in. And it's there's been, because of NIL, there's been no need for some of these guys to go.
Yeah, they can stay for an extra year.
Okay. Gabriel did not get a good draft grade at Oklahoma. My understanding was he was mad at the Oklahoma people he didn't get a good draft grade. But he's 5'10" and a half. That's the part you can't change. Now, I know Russell Wilson is not that tall. I got that. And prototypical quarterbacks, Patrick Mahomes is not a prototypical quarterback, but he's not 5'10" and a half either. Okay, Daniels is good size. Goff is great size. Mahomes does. C.J. Stroud. These are the quarterbacks that are remaining. Hurts, bigger man than I think people realize he is. Yeah. Stafford's big player, right? So you've got, you don't have to be the 6'5" guy to make plays, but you got to, in that league, to see over linemen and so forth. Remember I talked about when Ohio State played Oregon, and I talked about this on the show, how the Oregon offensive line that night in Eugene did a great job of taking Sawyer and Tuileamalo and pushing them way out. And that they did a great job of taking the two tackles and moving them left and right, which then did what? It gave Gabriel, not America's tallest quarterback, the ability to see see downfield, and through the slot was able to make throws.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the part. That's the part that, for everything he brings you to the table, he won't be able to overcome at the next level. That'll be difficult. It wasn't what Oklahoma did. Was Oregon's offense better? Yes. Okay. And does he play with a lot of guts? Yes. Ewers is going to have an issue like that. Milroe, okay, when he's up there and he's on the mound, they don't give him the number 2. He doesn't throw curveballs. Doesn't throw changeups. Everything he throws is a fastball. Like everything.
Got him in a lot of trouble this year with picks.
Right? He's almost like Juan Marichal at times. He'd wind up and throw that thing. Okay, he wound up big time on that one. But he's a great runner. Great athlete playing the position. Shedeur Sanders is not really a runner. He's not a runner. Right? Throws and he throws a variety of passes, to his credit. Cam Ward, same way. That's why they'll be the top two guys off the board, and deservedly so. Now, whether they're successful or not
is the question.
Is a question, because you are not going to be going to the cream of the crop.
You're going to the Tennessee Titans of the world, who right now are in, I think the best way to say it is a rebuild from the studs up.
I mean, everything is.
Yeah. Going now to the other side of collegiate sports, to what happened last night in college basketball. I'll talk about that a little bit. 3 upsets went on in the top 25. The one that doesn't have as many notes for us, Oregon State took down Gonzaga 97-89. And then you get over to Temple and a coach we know pretty well.
Great win for Fish, 88-81 over Memphis last night. It was a great win.
Their first win against an AP top 25, I think, in like a decade. It's been a while. So the Owls took them down 88-81 Memphis. And the last one, a Dawson Garcia 3-pointer from near midcourt.
Saw that.
84-81 over the Michigan Wolverines. What a shot, and B, wow.
Because what had happened, they were in overtime, and Minnesota opened the door by missing a free throw. Hit the first, missed the second. Michigan came down, tied the game with 7 seconds to go. My first thought was, man, scored too fast. Minnesota had trouble getting it down the floor, but they got it to Garcia, and it was about a 35, 38-foot shot.
Yeah.
That he just completely drained.
It was
the first ranked win for Ben Johnson as the head coach at his alma mater. One of his 2 alma maters. He was at Northwestern originally.
It now gives Minnesota their first Big Ten win, Michigan their first Big Ten loss.
Then Rutgers last night made it 2 in a row. They beat UCLA. And they were down 6. But this is the ability to foul the right guy. Mia, who is as effective at shooting free throws as I am at this stage of my life, bricked everything.
0 for 3 on the night for Nebraska.
Bricked them. He had a chance at a 3-point play, brick. He had a chance for 2 shots late. One flew off the flange. So then everybody's like, oh, geez, the other one may fly off the flange too. It didn't, but it wasn't even close. And then Bailey hit threes. Martini hit threes. Harper hit threes. And they won the game last night. It was their ability to hit the three, which is not really their strong suit. They're only a 32% three-point shooting team. But they were able to do that last night. And look, and Bailey and Harper are exceptional players. Always the question with Rutgers is on every single night, who's the third guy going to be? Martini hitting a couple threes last night off the bench was huge. And I thought Williams played pretty well for them last night because I watched the entire game. Well, I had to wait for that Minnesota thing to finish. I didn't bother flipping over FS2. I didn't want to. Minnesota game was too good.
And by the way, the other Big Ten game that also happened last night that went to, again, overtime and ended with a buzzer beater. Northwestern took down Maryland 76-74. I believe it was Nick Martinelli hit the buzzer beater to take down the Terrapins.
Martinelli is
he's a good player.
But he is the definition of player development. The first year he's at Northwestern, he barely plays. Like, all right, well. Second year, he plays a little bit more. He's like 7 points a game. Like, yeah, you know what? Dick, he's using more. He's a better player, the whole deal. Now he's 20 points a game.
It's him and Barnheiser, and those two are carrying them.
Well, Brooks Barnheiser's
great.
Been a terrific player for a long time.
And the games tonight in the Big Ten to watch out for: Indiana in Columbus against Ohio State, and then Iowa in Pauley Pavilion against UCLA.
I believe that Illinois plays Michigan State tomorrow.
They're going to play Michigan State on Sunday. Tomorrow's games, Purdue, Oregon is NBC Peacock, 3 o'clock. At the same time, Wisconsin will take on USC in the Galen Center. And then Sunday's matchups, Nebraska is in Maryland, Northwestern is in Ann Arbor, and then Illinois is in the Breslin Center where we just were. So that is Sunday's matchups. And, of course, Penn State is a standalone Monday game on Peacock.
Well, it's interesting. I'm surprised there aren't a couple more games on Monday. It's King Day. It's King Day. So
college basketball world has a lot going on this weekend. In terms of the NFL action, of course, we are in the divisional round. Saturday.
To me, this is the fun round of the entire NFL season. Is that, first of all, the opening round for years, for the most part, has been like, really? Last weekend, except for the Tampa Bay-Washington game.
Yeah.
All the other games are like,
The other ones were fun watches, but for different reasons.
Right.
Where it was like, Chargers are going to turn the ball over again.
Right. But this round is different. Part of it is everybody's played except for two teams, and they're the two number one seeds. Kansas City's got Houston. Kansas City's been living on the edge. They aren't the Vikings of 2 years ago because they're more talented than the Vikings of 2 years ago. But the Vikings of 2 years ago won 11 games by a touchdown or less.
Yeah.
And then played the Giants in the opening round at home and lost. Saquon had a big day. Daniel Jones had a big day.
It's what got him paid. That's what it was.
And the Giants went in there and beat them. That's not Kansas City. I mean, with all due respect, that's not Kirk Cousins. That's Patrick Mahomes. I know Mahomes hasn't had his best season. But they do have Pacheco back. That really helps. They've got Worthy. Really helps.
Everyone's gotten a week off.
Everybody's had a week off. Chris Jones is going to play.
Travis Kelce's, of course, going to be there. They're the Chiefs.
I guess Jerry Valeri got an invitation to the Taylor Swift's box. That was nice.
Yeah, he declined. He's too big time for it. But that game is going on.
He says, look, I can't deal with this. It's just the way certain people are.
Publicity is too big for him.
But C.J. Stroud's playing better.
A defense playing real well.
And Mixon has made a big difference in how Stroud plays. All right, so that helps. Eagles and Rams. Joe was the engineer for that, so you weren't there. But we're watching the game, eating dinner in the restaurant bar area.
Yeah.
Well, the game's on. So Dick Girardi, every time the Eagles had the ball, they break the huddle. Give it to Barkley. Right. Next play. Give it to Barkley. Next play. Give it to Barkley. He did that all night. Finally, by the third quarter, I said, it's time for me to hit the hay here. Because I'd already had that trip in from Minnesota. Right? And Barkley ran for over 200 yards that night.
255 to be exact.
Yeah, 255
and two
yards.
touchdowns, by the way.
I mean, just absolutely shredded the Rams defense.
And had 4 catches, 47 yards as well, just to add to it.
Now, the Rams defense, Chris Shula's defense, is playing better now than they were then. Now, that was also... Thanksgiving week.
It was, Thanksgiving week.
So you're talking about that's maybe 7-8 weeks ago. The way they play defense down the stretch, much better. They'll have to because the Eagles' offense with Devontae Smith, A.J. Brown, Dotson, Goddard, Barkley, that offensive line plus Hurts. And I've tried to tell people hate when I say this, but Hurts is the weak link in that offense.
Yes.
2 years ago, he was the critical part of that offense. Critical.
He made it run.
He was the MVP of the league, even though I know Mahomes won it. He was the best player on the field, bar one play, in the Super Bowl. And the one play was costly because Bolden, by the way, I think Bolden is one of those. Nobody talks enough about him players. Like, this guy, every game I watch, he's really good. I'm talking about Kansas City, 32. You're like,
Nick Bolton.
He's really, really good. He's the one that picked it up and ran back for a touchdown.
But Hurts.
Right. But since then, last year, he struggled. And please, don't sit there and go, well, he's only throwing 3 interceptions. Please, watch the games. He's playing good football, but he's not playing great football. He's playing good football. He's not playing mediocre. He's not playing poor. It's not poor or mediocre. He's playing good. But he's not playing great.
And in the playoffs, you need to play great.
Now, Stafford down the stretch has played great. He He doesn't have the running game.
Mm-mm.
He doesn't have Barkley back there, so he has to. Now, getting both Kupp and Puka Nacua back together has really helped.
Because Nacua is legitimate number one receiver, and spoiler, Cooper Kupp is a legitimate number one receiver.
Right. But they've gotten both back together.
Yeah.
They spent a lot of time this season where you only had one, not the other, right? That's helped. Philadelphia is, what, a 6-point favorite in this game?
Philadelphia is currently favored by 6.5 points. Yes.
Okay. But that's accurate, especially playing there.
Yeah.
Right? And I know it's the most intimidating crowd in sports. And I'm going, they're loud.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, in other words, they will make a difference in terms of communication and everything like that, because the Philadelphia fans are incredible. They're passionate. They expect a lot of their team, right? And they're going to be into every single play.
Yeah.
That part is the atmosphere is going to be beyond words. It's going to be great. Kansas City, the same thing, right? It's going to be the same way. Buffalo,
Kansas City, by the way, quickly, Kansas City's favored by 8 points. It's -8 for them. And then the Bills the Ravens are favored by 1 point in Orchard Park.
But the Ravens took them apart when they played with 35-10, 35-7, something like that the first time. Right?
The Ravens took down the Bills 35-10.
Yeah. So the first time, they should be favored. I
Yeah.
have no problem with that. But the game is going to be in Orchard Park. You're talking about 4 places, because I haven't mentioned Ford Field yet, where the decibel level in all 4 places is going to be incredible. And that's why I was in my room before the Michigan State game, and they had on a replay of Penn State SMU. Well, I hadn't seen it. That broadcast stunk. I'm watching it. That stadium. Were you in there or were you in the studio?
In Beaver Stadium for the SMU game. I was there in the press box.
Okay. How loud was that place?
I mean, we had the windows closed and you could still barely hear what was going on.
Right.
It was cranking.
We had the windows open, the whole thing. You watch the broadcast. You can't hear the crowd.
Which,
okay, and I'm not going to get into how those guys, quote, approached it. That's one of the worst broadcasts I've ever seen in my life. They brought nothing of the life of Beaver Stadium to the TV. That should have been coming through the set to make the college football playoff seem like the greatest thing going. And you want to talk about an epic failure on their part. That was terrible.
Do you know why I'm a New Orleans Saints fan? The first game I ever watched, Saints, first game back in the Dome, taking on the Falcons, and Michael Vick and Steve Gleason blocks the punt.
Yes.
And Mike Tirico then just stops talking for about 2 minutes.
Yeah.
And the entire crowd is just cheering and shouting and crying and celebrating together. And that is partially why that's a big chunk of why I'm a Saints fan.
Sure it is.
And the fact that you don't get that on a broadcast is criminal, because that's what makes me want to be a fan of the Saints, or makes little Johnny, who lives over in Bellefonte, be like, I want to root for Penn State. That's why.
I sat there because, to be honest with you, I rarely, if ever, watch replays of Penn State games. I already lived it once, right? So I rarely do, unless I'll go back and I can call the play on my iPad, which I have the ability to do. I'm not going to get into the particulars of, like, I want to see that one more time. And it's a play, and I know which play it is. I can find it. Okay, got it. Every once in a while, like, maybe, either it was a penalty or something. I just wanted to see what happened, just as a refresher. I never sit there and watch full games. Well, I'm sitting in my hotel room. I'm like, hey, you know what? What a fun day that was. And I'm watching it. The broadcast was terrible. Whomever was doing the sound on that game, or whatever the director or the producer told them what to do with it, they made it sound like it was a country club. They made Beaver Stadium sound like it was the 17th hole at the Masters and they got a par. How wrong can you be as to how you do something? I want to come through the set. Okay?
It's criminal.
And I'm not going to get into the rest of it. The rest of it was like, whoa. I mean, it was a big disappointment. The whole thing, except for seeing the plays, like like the Lucas interception and when he batted the ball in the air, whatever. Okay, it was like, Okay, again, it was a bold example of what I've said about ESPN many times. Where does their depth across the board show up where they don't have a lot? It shows up championship week, bowl season.
Yeah. And
I mean, West Durham was there. Okay, now, I'm obviously prejudiced because I mean,
great guy.
Okay, but we're tight. Okay. I told him point blank. I said, I don't get why you're not doing this game. Because, I mean, he's the lead guy for the ACC network, which means he's employed by ESPN. Like, I don't get why you're not doing this game.
I don't know. And speaking of games and being here, we will not be on the air on Monday. We will be back.
You seem so happy about that.
I mean, hey, next week you're with Jason. There's no Niners discussions to happen, but you'll be back on these airwaves on Tuesday.
He'll talk about the Niners at some point. It's just going to be the same old mumbo jumbo. Like, they lose one guy and the season's over with. One guy. They lose one guy. They lose Christian McCaffrey. Gone. Huh?
Whenever I hear the word gone, I think of Dick Girardi saying, "Go."
Thank you for listening to Sports Talk with Steve Jones, a 7 Mountain Media production. Come back at 11 every weekday for analysis of the latest happening in the sports landscape. From college football to European soccer, Steve and Kyle cover it all on Sports Talk with Steve Jones.